Thanks for staying with us. You're watching WION World is One, and this is Speed News. Let's start with all the top stories making headlines today. US President Donald Trump has launched a scathing attack on Pope Leo, calling him weak on crime and terrible for foreign policy. The comments came just a day after the Pope made a plea for peace in West Asia. Speaking to reporters at Joint Base Andrews, Trump said that the Pope is a very liberal person who doesn't believe in stopping crime. He further accused the pontiff of toying with a country that wants a nuclear weapon. US President Donald Trump has said he does not care whether Iran returns to negotiations with the United States following failed talks in Pakistan. Speaking to reporters at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland after returning from Florida. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says Tehran was inches away from finalizing a deal with the United States during high-level talks in Islamabad before negotiations collapsed. He blamed what he called US maximalist demands, shifting goalposts and a blockade for derailing the agreement. In a post on X, Araghchi said Iran had engaged in the most intensive talks with Washington in nearly 5 decades in good faith, aiming to end the war, but accused the US of undermining the process at the final stage. US Central Command says it will start enforcing a maritime blockade on traffic to and from Iranian ports at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. This comes after Donald Trump announced plans for the US Navy to block the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's Navy Chief Shahram Irani has dismissed US President Donald Trump's threat to blockade the Strait of Hormuz as ridiculous and laughable, following failed talks between Tehran and Washington. Speaking on state television, he said Iranian naval forces are closely tracking and supervising all movements of US military forces across the region. An Israeli airstrike on the southern Lebanese town of Marub has killed at least 4 people and injured 3. This according to Lebanon's health ministry. The strike follows a surge in violence, with officials reporting 35 deaths and over 150 injuries from Israeli attacks in the past 24 hours. Hungary's longtime nationalist leader Viktor Orban has conceded defeat after 16 years in power as Conservative challenger Peter Magyar claimed a decisive parliamentary victory. Magyar pledged to realign Hungary with the EU and NATO following years of strained ties. With about 67% of votes counted, his party is projected to win 137 of 199 seats, with more than 2/3 of majority. Voters in Peru will have to wait until at least Monday for the results of Sunday's presidential election after logistical problems disrupted the process. Thousands of voters at home and abroad were reportedly unable to cast ballots, prompting electoral authorities to extend voting for 63,300 residents in Lima, as well as Peruvian voters in Orlando and Patterson in the United States. Officials announced the extension after counting began Sunday evening. Voting is mandatory in Peru for citizens aged 18 to 70, with fines of up to $32 for those who fail to participate. A short truce between Russia and Ukraine to mark Orthodox Easter has formally expired after 32 hours, with both sides accusing each other of thousands of violations. The ceasefire, ordered by Russian President Vladimir Putin and earlier proposed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, saw only a limited lull in fighting. While Russian air raids breathed easily and eased, clashes continued along much of the 1,200-kilometer front line, echoing similar fragile truces seen in the past. U.S. Congressman Eric Swalwell has suspended his campaign for California governor, acknowledging what he called mistakes in judgment amid sexual misconduct allegations. In a post on X, he apologized to his family, staff and supporters while vowing to fight what he described as serious false allegations. The move follows mounting scrutiny after multiple women accused him of misconduct, including claims of sexual assault reported by major U.S. media outlets. Australia has announced that for the first time in its history, a woman will lead the army as part of a broader leadership reshuffle in the Defence Force. Lieutenant General Susan Coyle, currently serving as Chief of Joint Capabilities, is set to take over as Chief of Army in July, succeeding Lieutenant General Simon Stewart. Her appointment comes as the military works to increase female representation and address ongoing allegations of widespread sexual harassment and discrimination within its ranks. In March, Lieutenant General Susan Coyle visited India and held a meeting with the Indian Chief of Army Staff, General Upendra Dwivedi. Hundreds gathered in Paris to protest a proposed bill aimed at tackling what authorities call new forms of anti-Semitism. Critics, including members of the Euro-Palestine group, argue the measures threatens free speech and could curb criticism of Israel. Meanwhile, a petition urging lawmakers to reject the bill has drawn more than 660,000 signatures. Irish Prime Minister Michael Martin has announced new fuel tax cuts worth over €500 million in a bid to calm nationwide protest over soaring fuel prices. The unrest, driven by farmers and truckers blocking key fuel infrastructure, has disrupted supplies across the country. The government says the spike in costs is linked to global oil disruptions following tensions in West Asia. While protesters eased on Sunday amid a police crackdown, it remains unclear if the measures will fully restore order. Nigerian military jets have reportedly struck a village market in the country's northeast while targeting Islamist militants, with at least 200 civilians feared dead. The incident occurred in Yobe state near the border with Borno, an area at the heart of a long-running insurgency. Local officials and residents say civilians were caught in the strike, though authorities have previously disputed such claims. The region has seen years of violence that has killed thousands and displaced millions. South Korea and Poland praised their growing defense partnership as Warsaw steps up military modernization following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Poland has become a major buyer of South Korean weapons, with the two nations signing deals worth more than $40 billion in 2022. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk is currently in Seoul, the first visit of its kind in 27 years, where he held talks with President Lee Jae-myung to further strengthen security and defense cooperation. Hakka Cultural Park turned into a vibrant splash of colors as Holi celebrations began, showcasing the strengthening cultural connection between Taiwan and India. Tensions have escalated in Noida as clashes broke out between workers and police. The workers had been demonstrating for several days, demanding a salary hike. The situation intensified when both sides confronted each other directly. During the unrest, some workers damaged and overturned police vehicles. In response, police deployed tear gas to disperse the crowd. Following the incident, the Noida Commissioner of Police has suspended several officers. Senior police and administrative officials are on ground, closely monitoring the situation. Efforts are ongoing to urge workers to remain calm and maintain peace. Delhi is seeing a steady rise in temperatures as the region moves out of relatively mild morning conditions. Meteorological forecasts suggest a continued warming trend through the week, with temperatures likely reaching 38 degrees Celsius by April 14th and approaching 40 degrees Celsius by April 17th. Clear skies and strong sunshine are expected to intensify the heat, making afternoons increasingly harsh and signaling the early onset of summer-like conditions across Delhi. Thailand is facing intense Songkran heat, worsening dust pollution and the threat of summer storms, with the meteorological department warning that temperatures could climb as high as 42 degrees Celsius in some areas. In its 24-hour forecast issued, the department said Upper Thailand would generally remain hot, with some places experiencing extremely hot conditions and hazy skies during the day. The weather pattern is being driven by a heat-induced low-pressure system covering Upper Thailand. Authorities in Indonesia are rolling out preventive measures to curb land and forest fires and protect food supplies as the El Nino climate pattern is expected to return in the second half of 2026. The Meteorology, Climatology and Geophysics Agency known as BMKG is monitoring Pacific Ocean conditions for early signs of development. Its latest assessment indicates up to an 83% chance of a weak to moderate El Nino emerging mid-year, raising concerns over a prolonged dry season and heightened fire risk. Iran's nationwide internet blackout has entered its 45th day, the longest recorded disruption in a sovereign state according to data from NetBlocks. Restrictions were imposed after the December 2025 massacres and the outbreak of war with Israel and the US. The Information Technology Guild organization says some businesses have regained limited global internet access. However, there is still no timeline for restoring connectivity for the general public. Officials say Iran remains under special wartime conditions with strict security controls. Access continues through a national tiered internet system based on priority and approval. Chinese robotics firm Unitary Robotics has released a new footage showing its H1 humanoid robot reaching record sprint speeds. The company says the robot hit a top speed of 10 meters per second, setting a new world record for humanoid machines. Tests were conducted on an athletics track where a speed monitor recorded a peak of 10.1 meters per second. The H1 robot features human-like proportions with a combined thigh and calf length of 80 centimeters. It weighs around 62 kilograms, making its build comparable to an average adult. UK financial regulators have held urgent talks with cybersecurity agencies and major banks over risks linked to a new AI model. The Bank of England, Financial Conduct Authority and HM Treasury are assessing potential threats to critical IT systems. The concerns are linked to Anthropic's latest model, Cloud Mythos Preview, which has flagged major software vulnerabilities. Officials are working with the National Cybersecurity Centre to examine risks across banking and financial infrastructure. Major banks, insurers and exchanges are expected to be briefed on the model's cyber risk potential in the coming weeks. AI industry leaders are urging workers to adapt to AI-driven work even as concerns grow over job losses. At the HumanX conference in San Francisco, executives said employees must learn to work with AI tools while building skills like coding, critical thinking, and communication. Companies are increasingly linking layoffs to AI adoption, with firms like Salesforce saying AI now handles around 50% of customer support tasks. Tech leaders say AI is automating routine work, reducing the need for entry-level roles across companies. However, some experts warn that firms may be using AI as a reason to justify job cuts rather than it being the only cause. Data shows entry-level hiring in tech has fallen sharply as basic tasks are increasingly handled by AI systems. US officials have held a high-level meeting with bank executives to discuss cyber risks and the use of a new AI model. According to a Bloomberg report, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Fed Chair Jerome Powell urged banks to use Anthropic's Mythos model to detect security vulnerabilities. Major banks including JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, Bank of America and Morgan Stanley are reportedly testing the AI model. Anthropic has announced limited access to the model, citing its ability to identify serious security flaws. Reports say the AI is capable of detecting vulnerabilities even without being specifically trained for cyber security tasks. The collapse of US-Iran peace talks has shaken global markets, pushing oil prices up sharply and lifting the dollar. US stock futures in major Asian markets plunged amid rising uncertainty. A US blockade on Iranian oil exports has intensified fears of supply disruption through the Strait of Hormuz. Investors are now bracing for possible military escalation and renewed inflation pressure, which could prompt central banks to raise interest rates. Markets in Asia are also factoring in that governments across the region are now taking a longer-term approach to energy security. They are not expecting the conflict to turn itself around anytime soon, or even if it does, that there will be guaranteed oil and gas shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. Oil prices jumped over 7% to cross $100 a barrel as the US prepared to enforce a naval blockade on Iran, raising fears of major supply disruptions. The move followed failed peace talks and threatens up to 2 million barrels per day of Iranian oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Markets are on edge as tensions escalate with warnings of Iran's strong retaliation. Analysts say the blockade could tighten global supply and keep oil prices elevated in the next term. Gold prices dropped over 2% as inflation concerns intensified following the collapse of US-Iran peace talks. The planned US blockade of the Strait of Hormuz has heightened fears of a prolonged energy supply shock. While bullion briefly dipped sharply, it recovered slightly as markets weighed geopolitical risks against inflation pressures. Safe haven demand remained muted as investors shifted focus to rising yields and a stronger dollar. The US dollar strengthened in early trading as failed US-Iran peace talks and a planned blockade of the Strait of Hormuz triggered a risk-off mood in global markets. Major currencies like the euro, pound and Australian dollar weakened against the greenback. Rising geopolitical tensions and a fragile ceasefire have pushed investors towards safe haven assets. Meanwhile, Hungary's currency surged after a major political shift, contrasting broader market caution. Manchester City took full advantage of leaders Arsenal's slip-up with the 3-0 victory at Chelsea to reignite the Premier League title race. City scored 3 times in the second half at Stamford Bridge to cut Arsenal's lead to 6 points. City have a game in hand over Arsenal after the Gunners' shock home defeat by Bournemouth on Saturday. Pep Guardiola's side host Arsenal at the Etihad Stadium on Sunday in a match that is being billed as the Premier League title decider.